everyone, and welcome to a new video. Today's video is going to be a little bit different than my normal sewing content, as you could probably tell by the title and thumbnail and my current backdrop. And this was inspired by some women's magazines which I recently purchased. They're from the early 20th century and include everything from sheet music to embroidery patterns to fashion advice from that period. I originally purchased these for fashion reference for some projects that I have coming up in the future, but I found myself really intrigued by the pages that included recipes. I've always liked cooking and baking to a certain degree because I feel like it's quite similar to sewing in the way that you start with a bunch of unassuming materials and combine them into something really special. But fabric is always my preferred medium, and I don't consider myself that good at cooking. But I've recently been following some original vintage patterns from the early 20th century, and I thought it would be fun to attempt some of these recipes in the same way that I've been attempting some original vintage patterns. Now, as I said, I'm not that great at cooking, so I don't know how well this is going to go, and I thought I would take you guys along with me in this journey. So hopefully that intro makes it clear that this video is not intended to be instructional in nature, because I have not personally followed any of these recipes. And boy, do I have a lot of recipes to follow. I've decided, since it is Sunday, and arguably one of the most important Sundays in the year, that I would make a proper Sunday dinner based off the book 52 Ideas for Sunday Dinner. At least I think that's the name of the book. I've officially Googled it. This book is called 52 Sunday Dinners by Elizabeth O.hiller, and it was originally copyrighted in 1913. So, to celebrate that, I have dressed up in the style of a 1913s lady, and this video is actually part of my Sewing Through the Decades project, so there will be a video all about making this dress coming up sometime in the near future. But for today, we are focusing on the food and the delicious menu that I've prepared using recipes from this book, 52 Sunday Dinners. I'm making a 7-course meal, or at least I'm attempting to. We have Nova Scotia canapes. I'm also going to make pan-broiled fillets of beef with sultana sauce. I'm going to make Carlsbad potatoes, as well as cauliflower a la bechamel and bechamel sauce. The final dinnery thing is cabbage relish, but I'm also going to be making lemon pie and following their pie crust recipe as well as their meringue recipe. And to top this all off, we're going to be making cafe noir using their boiled coffee recipe with a few alterations to turn it into the cafe thing. I'm going to try and follow just the recipes and information provided in this book, but if I can't figure something out, I may turn to Google and ask some questions there. So first, I have to get my apron on, and I totally made this in an hour last night because I knew some of you would judge me if I wasn't wearing an apron while I'm doing this. So now I am ready, and as I said, the first recipe I'm going to follow is the pie, or more specifically, the pie crust. So to begin, I have to make rich paste, and their recipe includes 1½ cups flour, 1/3 of a cup cottolene, 3/4 tablespoon salt, 1/2 teaspoon baking powder, and ice water. This recipe book was sponsored by something called cottolene, which I think is like Crisco. It seems like some sort of unflavored lard. So since I don't think cottolene is being made today, I'm just going to replace it with Crisco, which I happen to have around. Also, it is worth mentioning that I have celiac disease. I'm going to be gluten-free-fying all of these recipes. I'm back in my comfort zone with just being disembodied hands. That is our flour and our salt, and now we have to cut in the cottolene, except it's not really cottolene. Now, I'm actually kind of familiar with making pie. I made all the pies for Thanksgiving this year, but I usually use a mixture of cold butter and cold lard, and then I do it in the food processor. So this is going to be different. I am going to be using some modern conveniences in this video. It's not going to be like mixing everything by hand, but I would like to, try some of the methods they suggest, and if they tell me to work it in by hand, then I shall do what I can. Duh. That is not what I wanted. So I think that is a good texture. There's no way I'm going to be able to roll this out though. Gluten-free flour, it doesn't do what flour is supposed to do. Hi, Guinevere. That's my gorgeous girl. Hi, sweetie. I've got a bed for you in here. You can come sit with me. I'm not going to be able to flute the edges with this one. Maybe if I used my normal recipe that has more fat in it, I could have. But with theirs, it's just too dry with the gluten-free flours. So the pie crust is officially done and stuff is falling out of it. Now I'm moving on to making the filling, which requires 3/4 cup sugar, 1 cup boiling water, 2 tablespoons cornstarch, 2 tablespoons flour, 2 egg yolks slightly beaten, 4 tablespoons lemon juice, grated rind of 1 lemon, 1 teaspoon butter, and a few grains of salt. And it wants me to combine all of the dry ingredients first. So I think I'm going to prepare those and put them in a bowl, and then also grate my lemon, and then I will go through the various steps with all of you. Okay, so it wants me to cook this over hot water, so I guess I will set up a pan on the stove that is boiling, and then we will do that over there. And I guess while I wait for that to boil, I will beat the 2 eggs. That was the worst egg I've ever cracked in my life. Oh my gosh. And I'm also going to get out the butter and grate the lemon. Just as a side note, I did wash all of the vegetables last night. There are a lot of leafy vegetables that go into this, and I know they're kind of gross when they're damp and limp, so I washed them all last night and let them fully dry outside of the fridge, and then I've refrigerated them overnight so they can crisp out. So if you don't see me washing things, don't worry, I've done it for everything except for the onions, which will be peeled, so I don't think that's really necessary. I think the mail got here. Told me to keep stirring and gradually add the water, the boiling water, while working over a pan of hot water. So got my hot water down here, got my boiling water over there. I'm just going to stir until it thickens. And then I have to add the eggs and the rind and the butter. And the sugar will stabilize the eggs so they will have a much higher cooking temperature. I think that's how it works. That's how it works when you're doing custard, which I've done before several times. It feels like it's getting thicker, but I think I might just be making that up. I'm worried the water underneath isn't hot enough, but I also don't want to break this bowl because it's not meant to be a double boiler or anything. Actually, you know what? I don't think it's gonna get thick enough in this bowl. I think I'm going to pour it straight into the pan. Yeah, that feels like it's thickening. I have the egg yolks here, which are what we actually want to add to this. So I had a slight mix-up where the mixture wasn't getting hot enough to thicken, so I've transferred it from the bowl that I was trying to double boil into an actual pan, and I'm just taking really good care of it. And then I also realized that I was supposed to just mix up the yolks and add that to the mixture, and the whites are supposed to be reserved for the meringue. So that is what I have done now. And I'm going to go back to stirring it, and hopefully I won't screw all of this up. I don't know if you can tell from this angle how much thicker that is, but it's definitely more of a syrup now, whereas before it was just very watery. I've decided that this is good. I don't know if I'm right about that, but that's what I've decided. Oh my god, this smells amazing. It smells so citrusy and delicious. Please don't turn into scrambled eggs. It's not super smooth, but I think it looks pretty good. I think I have accomplished it. I don't know if it's going to set, but I'm going to pour it into a bowl so it can cool slightly, like it told me to do, before adding it to the pie shell. So while I wait for that to cool a little bit, I'm just going to do some of the other time-consuming instructions that they have for me. So for example, the Nova Scotia canapes require hard-boiled eggs, and it's been ages since I've made hard-boiled eggs, but I think you bring the water up to boiling with the eggs in it, and then as soon as it hits boiling, you take them off the stove and then wait, and then you put them in cold water. I don't know if that's right, but I'm trying to do this based off of memory, so that is what I'm going to do. And I'm also going to prepare the cauliflower for the cauliflower a la bechamel. They want me to soak head down in cold salt water to cover. So I'm just going to prepare a bowl of cold water for it and then stick it in there. potatoes also need to be washed and pared, though I've already washed them, so I just have to peel them, which is apparently what pare means. I looked it up. And then it wants me to soak them for 1 hour in cold water. So I'm going to try and get that done while the pie is cooking and stuff. This actually cooled down way faster than I thought it would, and the texture and flavor of it is pretty awesome. So I'm going to go ahead and pour it in my pie shell and then just get it right in the oven. It's not going to fill very much at all. I should have used a smaller pie shell. I will stick this in the oven for about 15 minutes and then check on it. And while I wait for that, I'm going to peel my potatoes. So all of these have been washed. Not that it matters that much when you're peeling them. It told me to pick small, similarly sized potatoes, and it wants me to cook up 12 of them. So I actually got, they're almost like stewing potatoes. They're really small, but when you have 12 of them, that's actually a pretty significant amount of potato. So hopefully this is adequate. These golden potatoes usually taste really good. Into the cold water it goes. I love peeling potatoes. I feel like it's one of the fun kitchen jobs. Like whenever a holiday comes around, my mom's cooking and we want to seem helpful, but we also want a good job. We're like, I can peel potatoes. So I'm already 1 hour into this project, and I really thought this video was going to be entertaining, but I underestimated the amount of stress that would go into this. I haven't looked at the eggs in a while. These eggs, they actually expired an embarrassingly long time ago, so we'll see how they look. But we're pretending it's war times, and during those times you might not have been able to get fresh eggs. You might only have eggs that expired a week and a half ago. Alright, potatoes done. They don't quite fit in the bowl that I have for them, but I will move them into a bigger bowl once I get the cauliflower set up. So its instructions were to pick a firm one. I think I did that. It wants me to remove the leaves, cut off the stalk, soak head down in cold water. So I'm going to do this. I don't really like cauliflower, so the only time I've actually really worked with it is when I'm cutting it up for our dogs. Can you hear the little pitter-patter? They hear it, and they come running because they think it's broccoli, and they get broccoli on their food. Alright, so that's what we're working with. There are also a couple brown spots, which I'm just going to shave off. But it's going to be covered in sauce, so no one's going to notice. It doesn't fit its bowl either, but that's fine. So the ingredients for the meringue consist of 2 egg whites, 2 tablespoons of powdered sugar, and 1/4 teaspoon of lemon or orange extract. Process. Beat whites until stiff and dry. Add sugar by the teaspoonful. Continue beating. Add flavoring drop by drop. Spread evenly over pie and bake 15 minutes in a slow oven. Brown the last 5 minutes of baking. So I can turn it upside down without anything coming out, which I think is a good sign. So the eggs are off the stove. I transferred the potatoes and cauliflower into a bigger pot so they can be fully submerged. And I took the pie out. I think I overcooked it a little bit, but it is what it is. And now I'm just going to spread the meringue on top. I love the texture of it. It's so like wibbly. It wanted me to unevenly spread it, but it's really hard to unevenly spread it. When I scrape it, it kind of picks up too much. And if I had more, I'd make it more domed towards the center. So I'm probably going to try like 8 minutes and then look at it again. In it goes. So I've tidied a bit. The pie is in the oven. I think it just needs a couple more minutes. And while that happens, I'm going to get started on the Nova Scotia canapes. So for this, you have to cut white bread in 1/3 inch slices and stamp out with heart-shaped cutter. Spread both sides thinly with butter. Brown them delicately in the oven. Mince Nova Scotia smoked salmon and moisten with mayonnaise or boiled salad dressing. Dispose a dainty border of finely chopped egg white around each and tip it off with a sprinkle of the yolk pressed through a sieve. Do not cover the salmon entirely with the egg. Arrange canapes on small plates covered with lace paper doily. Garnish each with a spray of parsley and serve as first course. I'm really mad at myself because I forgot the doilies, and the doilies are a crucial part of any dish, but we're going to carry on without those. And I also decided not to use salmon. So I hope this isn't like cheating too much. I just really don't like fish. And it doesn't end well for the fish either, since I usually end up throwing up, probably on the fish. and then you guys at home would want to throw up, and it just like, no fish, okay? But I did get some smoked ham, and that's what I'm going to be using instead. So I've just had this bread out thawing. This is Udi's gluten-free bread because, as I said, I have celiac disease. I got the cutter from Target, but I did end up reshaping it a little bit just because it wasn't a defined enough heart for my personal taste. Look, it's so cute. So I'm going to make a couple of these because I think they might actually be good. But I'm saying that as someone who has never had mayonnaise in recent memory, and I might have to cut a little bit of crust into these just to be able to get 2 out of each slice of bread. Seems like such a shame to only make 1 per slice of bread. I do think it's funny that this is called Nova Scotia canapes because I don't think this has anything to do with Nova Scotia. While I was looking through these recipes, I also realized that they use the word Spanish, like Spanish rice or Spanish soup or whatever, to refer to pretty much anything that has peppers as a main ingredient. It can be the exact same as a different recipe, but with peppers, and that makes it Spanish. So those are my little hearts. Some of them are a little bit crusty, but we're gonna deal with that. So I'm just gonna butter both sides of these and then stick them in the oven. Okay, the eggs are in ice water. I think I massively overcooked those, but we just have to wait and see. I also just took the pie out, and I think I over browned it a little bit, but you guys who have actually had lemon meringue pie will have to let me know. Actually, you don't have to let me know. I definitely over browned it, but it's gonna be fine. Alright, I'm going to stick these in the oven for 5 minutes and then flip them and do it again. And while those are in the oven, I'm going to chop my ham up and mix it with mayonnaise. And I'm not sure if this is supposed to be like a paste or if you're actually supposed to have chunks of meat in it. I'm assuming since it's smoked salmon that it would usually be more paste-like, almost like a cream cheese spread with salmon in it, but I really don't know, and I couldn't find any evidence of this dish existing in modern times, so we're just making it up. Okay, I'm going to mix this with mayonnaise now. It's so gelatinous. And I actually think that's enough mayonnaise, because it said to moisten with mayonnaise, and that's definitely moist. Like, that's spreadable, I think. So I shall leave it as that. Also, I'm really sorry that my apron keeps falling down. I need to make this draft shorter. I might go ahead and pin that, and I'm also going to let my dog outside and do a little bit more cleaning up. And then I will come back and I will have vegetables to chop and eggs to peel and all sorts of fun stuff like that. Alright, so I think that is as finely chopped as that is going to get. I definitely overboiled my eggs, but we're dealing with it, okay? So I think I can start plating this delicacy. I have my hammaise, which is, by the way, the best name for a product ever. I feel like hammaise, mayonnaise with little chunks of ham cut up into it, could be the name of a whole line of products. I also have my very cute hearts, which look cute, but they're kind of like croutons. It wants me to put a border of white egg around each heart, and I'm not sure if that means on the heart itself or just like a little bed for the heart, but I'm leaning towards a little bed for the heart because I think that's going to just look a little bit nicer. So I'm gonna put on some of my hammaise. I'm trying really hard to make this look cute, and I don't think you can tell because it doesn't look cute. So I think I'm going to put 3 of these on a plate and then leave the other 3 in the fridge for my dad to try when he gets home. Because, you know, after a long day of work, all you want are hearts covered with ham and mayonnaise. I'm sure this is what he's been craving all day. The beautiful plates are provided by my mom in her china collection, which is very nice of her. Okay, so that is our beautiful first dish, and now it wants me to press some of the yolk through a sieve, but that isn't going to happen. I don't think I have a sieve that will actually let me do that, so I'm just going to mash it with a fork and then kind of sprinkle it on top. No, I'm getting the yolk onto the... Oh, I should have put the yolk on them before I put them on the bed of the whites. Gosh, things were going so well. And then it wants me to put a little bit of parsley on each one. Yeah, that really does it. Before the parsley, you're like, this is kind of disgusting. And after the parsley, you're like, yeah. Alright, so this is dish number 1, and I'm going to pop this in the fridge. I've gone ahead and completed both the pie and the Nova Scotia canapes. So far, I think we're doing okay, but there's still a lot left to do. I'm going to try and get everything that is okay cold done first, so then when there's the pressure of having everything warm done in the same hour, I'm not as pressured. So I'm going to go ahead and get started on the sultana sauce. And this is one of those things that I thought was a little weird, but potentially edible weird. So sultana sauce is made out of sultana raisins, and it can also be served over desserts. So the fact that it's paired with steaks for this recipe is a little bit strange, but I'm also quite curious to try it. I think I'm just going to go ahead and get the raisins started and then put together the dry ingredients and put together the wet ingredients, and then we can mix it all up once the raisins are done. And while that's going on, I'm going to start cutting stuff up for the cabbage relish. First, the raisins. And I'm just going to boil this on the stove, and then once it's boiling, I'm going to add the raisins. Now, I couldn't find sultana raisins. I don't think they're very common anymore, but I do have golden raisins. I kind of want to make oatmeal raisin cookies now that I've seen these. We need a 1/4 cup of sherry wine. Okay, so those are the 3 things that I need for this recipe, which you probably can't see from there. So now I'm just going to go ahead and cut up the ingredients from the relish. I really don't have a good knife for this, but I'm going to use this one. I don't know if I've ever had cabbage before. When I think of cabbages, I don't think of the flavor of cabbage. I think of a character from Avatar. If you're cool, you'll know what I'm talking about. I also purchased the closest to white cabbage that they had at my store. And I looked it up, and I think it's pretty much the same thing as white cabbage, even though it's green on the outside. Hopefully this is okay. And I know, once again, this is not the best knife for this. We just don't have a lot of good knives in this household. And I was gonna say that you guys could send me some, but I really don't want anyone sending me knives, so don't do that. Please. All right, so I think that is pretty finely chopped. The water is officially boiling, so I'm going to go ahead and pour in the raisins. These are really fresh raisins, so they're actually already pretty tender, so I don't know how long they'll take in there, but I will leave them for maybe 10 minutes and then check. And again, I'm not using a good knife. I don't have good knives, guys. And I'm also kind of scared of sharper knives. People ask me why I don't use rotary cutters for sewing, and it's for the same reason. It's because I'm not very coordinated when it comes to things. I wouldn't say that I'm clumsy. I'm just not super aware of my surroundings sometimes. Unless someone is chewing loudly or picking at something or doing something I find annoying, then that's the only thing I can focus on. But I won't necessarily see a dog gate when I'm walking by, and then I will end up tripping over the dog gate, and then I will have permanent bruises on my knee from how many times I've tripped over that stupid dog gate. I tend to be kind of unaware of my surroundings sometimes, and that can lead to me hurting myself, and I really would be terrified to see what would happen if I tried using a rotary cutter consistently. I think this might be a little chunky for a relish, but it's also basically the salad course, so I think it's okay if it's a little chunky. Now for the onion, I'm probably going to try, and if that happens, I may edit this part out. Also, fun fact, this recipe called for a Bermudan onion, and I didn't know what that is, but it turns out that that is a sweet onion instead of a tangy yellow onion. I actually really like the taste of onion, but I cannot stand them when they are cooked because then they turn to slime, and it reminds me of little worms, and I hate it. Can you tell that I'm really, really picky about textures of food? Because let me tell you, I am really, really picky about textures of food. So here is my relish in all of its glory. So after getting everything cut up, it says to mix well and season with 1 teaspoon salt, 1/8 teaspoon black pepper, 1 teaspoon celery seed, and 3 tablespoons sugar. Dilute 1/4 of a cup vinegar with 2 tablespoons cold water and add to relish. Chill and serve in crisp lettuce leaves. Gee, I really hope we have enough vinegar. I want it served in lettuce leaves. I'm also going to show you a fun way to get the stalk out of the lettuce. You just bang it on the counter. And then it pops right out. Works with skulls too. I don't think that looks very pretty. So I made a little bed for it. And now this is going to go in the fridge as well, and I'm going to do some tidying, and then we are going to work on the sauce, and then I'm going to take a break because I'm tired, and ironically enough, I'm quite hungry. Okay, I changed my mind. I'm actually kind of worried about the state of this, and I think the raisins have definitely softened. I actually think they were soft enough to begin with, since they were so fresh. So I'm just going to go ahead and add my liquids to this. Not my liquids, in fact, the exact opposite of the liquids. I'm adding the dry ingredients to this. So it says to cook for 20 minutes, so I'm going to set it for 20 minutes and do some tidying around the kitchen while this hopefully cooks and transforms. Nothing has changed, it still just looks like raisins and water. It has been almost 20 minutes and it hasn't changed that much. So I'm going to turn the heat up a little bit, and I guess I'm just going to go ahead and add this stuff to it. So what I just added was the wine, the butter, as well as the lime juice, because I didn't have any lemon juice. You know what, it's starting to smell good. With the wine and the butter, it smells sort of like raisin toast. I could see this being good on top of fruitcake, if you are the type of person that thinks anything to do with fruitcake is good. Can I do this without spilling it everywhere? Probably not. Let's give it a try. So I'm getting started on the potatoes now. And they need to be covered with 1 quart of water. And no one in America knows what that means. That should be about right. And I'm going to put the double on and put this on really high. Once it's boiling, I can pop the potatoes in there. Totally forgot to press record, but I was saying that I'm going to get started on the bechamel sauce while I wait for the water for the potatoes to boil. So to make this, I'm using butter, flour, chicken stock, thin cream, yolks of eggs, salt, pepper, a few grains of nutmeg, parsley, and that's pretty much it. So step 1 is melting the butter in the saucepan, adding the flour, and stirring to a smooth paste. So it wants me to add 1.5 cups highly seasoned chicken stock. I just bought the only stock that Target had. I don't think this is going to be super highly seasoned, so I might add some of my own stuff. We will go with some onion powder. I don't really know what this sauce is supposed to taste like, so I don't want to go too crazy with spices. But garlic and onion powder never hurt anyone. I didn't realize that I had to add stuff one thing after another while continually stirring. If I knew that, then I probably would have set more stuff up. Like, as you can see, I'm not stirring constantly, but I also have to get the cream in the microwave. So I bought heavy cream, not thin cream. I guess I could add milk to it. I have to get the yolks of 2 eggs while I'm doing all of this other stuff too. Okay, so those are the whites, and I didn't get a bowl for the yolk. Oh, what a mess. And my apron's falling down. Everything under control. So now it wants me to bring that to a boiling point. So hopefully we can do that. I'll turn the heat up a little bit and try and fix my apron in the meantime. Oh wow, okay, potato stuff is boiling too. So while this is doing this, I'm gonna go ahead and get the seasonings ready. Hello everyone, so I'm back. I did not do as many dishes as I said I was going to do, but we will deal with those later. Much later. But I've gone ahead and started on the bechamel sauce, as you probably saw, and I also started boiling water for the potatoes and then put the potatoes in the water, so I should actually check on those right about now. And once the potatoes are soft but not breaking apart, the potatoes still have a ways to go. I also just have to cut up some parsley for the bechamel sauce. It doesn't tell me how much, maybe that much? I don't know, we'll see. Oh my goodness. Okay, so the sauce is boiling. So now I have to remove it from the range, and it wants me to add the egg yolk. Okay, so the eggs have been mixed in, and now it wants me to add the seasonings too. I will taste a little bit and see if I think it needs more seasoning. Oh my god, that's salty. No, it definitely doesn't. Is it all like that, or do I just get a grain of salt? Because that's like inedibly salty. Go ahead. Yeah, I think the chicken stock they're talking about wouldn't have as much salt as the one I bought does. Okay, so it wants me to beat until smooth and glossy, which I'd say it already is. Oh, I guess it's not. What do you guys think? Do you think that's glossy? I think that's glossy. So now I have a burner free that I can use for the cauliflower just as soon as my potatoes are done. Here are the potatoes. I can check on them again. Oh, I forgot to add the parsley to the sauce. I just read the recipe and it says that you're supposed to sprinkle with the finely chopped parsley, whereas I thought they meant that was like one of the spices to be included afterwards. Oh well. Okay, so the bechamel sauce is done and it's actually really good. I did screw up with the parsley, but that's okay. The potatoes still need a few more minutes. Once the potatoes are done, it wants me to put them in a hot serving dish. So I'm going to go ahead and pop it in the oven and let it heat up while I wait for the potatoes to finish cooking. That's what we call puppy cuddling break. Yeah. I'm very tired. So the potatoes got finished and then I went ahead and I drained them. And I'm just going to sprinkle them with some chili powder since I don't have paprika. I know they taste very different, but it's what we have to do. I'm also going to add some butter. Oh my god! Holy sh! Okay. I'll be right back. So basically, the top of the salt grinder just fell off and poured all of these sea salt crystals into the potatoes. Okay, so let's try this again. Okay, so there we go. We need 1/2 tablespoons. Then I will add a little shake of chili pepper again, or chili powder rather. And I'm going to be really delicate with the salt. Just going to sprinkle a little bit on. So that was spectacular. I totally had an entire thing of salt crystals fall into the potatoes. So I took them off the heat, I rinsed them off, I started over. So they're a little bit beat up looking now, but at least they won't be super ridiculously salty, or at least I hope not. And it seems like my cauliflower water is boiling, so I get to go ahead and put the cauliflower in that. Definitely boiling. In you go, cauliflower. I may or may not have turned the burner for the potatoes off by accident. So the potatoes haven't been cooking. So I'm going to give them another 5 or so minutes, I think. So while all of that is going on, I'm going to get started on the boiled coffee, which is probably the dish or course that I have the least amount of faith in. So to do it, you're supposed to scald a granite-ware coffee pot, beat eggs slightly and dilute with 1/2 cup cold water, add to coffee and mix thoroughly, turn into coffee pot and add boiling water, stir well, place on range, let boil 5 minutes. If not boiled sufficiently, coffee will not be clear. If boiled too long, the tannic acid will be extracted, causing serious gastric trouble. And then there's like basically ways to get the grains out. And I don't actually have a boiler that I can put on the stove. I'm going to try and do this in a pot instead, and we'll see if that works or not. I'm interested to try this, and this was a staple on pretty much all of the menus, so I felt like it was something that I had to do, even though it isn't something that personally appeals to me. So to create the coffee, you need 3 cups boiling water, and I'll just put that on a high burner until it boils. So now I am going to take out my serving dish from the oven. And dump the potatoes into it. I assume it wants me to put the buttery stuff in there too, but it doesn't actually say. Now I have to wash this pan so I can work on the steaks. So I think the cauliflower needs like 3 more minutes. The potatoes are in the oven keeping warm while I work on other stuff. I'm trying to boil water for the coffee. So now we get started on beef, which is probably the part I'm most worried about. I'll show you the meat I got. I have sirloin filet steaks. They request that you have fillets of beef cut 1.5 inches thick, and then you should shape them in circular forms. I wasn't sure if this meant like you should just use your hands to kind of mold them like clay, or whether you should get a cookie cutter and cut them into a circular shape. Does anyone remember when someone did that on MasterChef and got crucified for it? Because I do. These are relatively already, so I'm not going to shape them too much. So the instructions for this are: broil 10 minutes in a hissing well-buttered frying pan, turning every 10 seconds for the first 2 minutes, that the surface may be seared thoroughly, thus preventing the loss of juices. Turn occasionally afterward. When half done, season with salt, pepper, reduce heat, and finish cooking. Arrange on hot serving platter and spread generously with soft butter. Pour over sultana sauce. So, let's do this. Okay, so I buttered the pan. My cauliflower also looks done. I don't know how to tell when cauliflower is done, but I think that's what it feels like when it's done. So I'm actually going to plate the cauliflower before working on the steaks, and I'm going to have to cut it a little bit to be able to fit it into my pretty serving dish. So that's not what the recipe says to do, but that's what Angie has decided to do. So it's really hot though. Another dish done. I'm going to put this in the microwave to keep it warm. Okay, so now I'm going to beat an egg, I guess. Now I just need to add a half cup of cold water. And it wants me to use a full cup of coffee. I'm going to use this Rainforest Java caramel vanilla coffee just because I don't have any normal black coffee around. I can spill literally anything. Yeah, that's not going to fit in there, is it? That looks disgusting. Actually, you know what, the more I'm mixing it, the more it looks like Oreo dust or something. So this is my beautiful coffee paste. Wow, yummy, right? It's really thick too. It smells good at least because it's the vanilla caramel coffee. Just spilled boiling water everywhere. Whoopsie daisies. Alright, so let it boil for 5 minutes. So I would say that is a crackling pot. So let's go ahead and sear our steaks. It's gonna be burned, isn't it? Yeah. Oh. Well, that is a cooking disaster in the half. I knew the boiled coffee was gonna be the stupid end of me. And I don't know what's even happening with the steaks. Well, I guess I will just leave them there. Like, how do you put them in a searing pan and leave them for 10 minutes and not expect them to get burnt? Okay, so it's been 10 minutes since I started the steak, but they haven't been on the burner for that full time because they were burning really quickly. This poor butchered steak. I've cut it open like 6 times, but I don't know what I'm doing. It got a little chaotic towards the end there, but my feast is finally complete and ready to be eaten. but to be honest, I would feel really uncomfortable trying to eat while wearing this. So I think I'm going to change really quickly, and then I shall be back to enjoy what I've slaved over for the last 6 hours. And I'm back. My hair might be a little bit frizzy, and the background might not be Highclere Castle, and the food might be slightly cold by now, but I'm doing what I can, and I'm eager to try this. So let's see how it is. Starting off with the Nova Scotia. Oh my god. I'm going to put the names of these things on screen, just because I may slightly forget what some of them are called. I actually kind of like this one. The texture of the mayonnaise and ham is a little weird, but the mayonnaise kind of seeps down into the bread and gives it some moisture, and you've got the flavor of the egg and the smoked flavor of the ham, and I mean, I feel like you could add those components to a sandwich and make something much easier and equally tasty. But I think this one was a success, at least flavor-wise. I don't think they look too bad either. Next up, I'm going to try the relish. I actually really like that. It's just very crunchy and fresh, and it tastes really interesting with the vinegar dressing. The celery seeds give it that celery flavor without the disgusting texture of celery. If you're looking for one of these to try, I think this is probably the one that I would suggest. It's really quite good. On to the main course of sorts. So I'm going to take one of these steaks, cauliflower, drenched in this wonderful sauce, and I'm going to take a potato. I'll start with the potatoes, because potatoes are definitely pretty safe. They're good, they're just a little bit watery and don't have a whole lot of flavor. Yeah, surprisingly, I don't love those that much. Try some cauliflower. I like it, but I don't love it. I really like how the sauce turned out. I think the sauce is delicious. Like, you could put that on pasta and it would be amazing. The cauliflower flavor is definitely overwhelming in spite of the sauce. But it's pretty good. I mean, I definitely think it's going to get eaten. I will try the steak. The steak, I had a lot of problems cooking. It did not go well. I really should try it with raisins, shouldn't I? It's not the worst thing in the world, but I'm not a big raisin fan just in general. And I think it kind of makes it worse that they're all swelled up and filled with this sugary juice, because they just burst in your mouth in a way that I find thoroughly unpleasant. So I'm not a fan with the raisin portion of this sauce, but the syrup, which I'll get some more of, is actually okay. Like, it isn't the sweetness of the sauce that is throwing me off. It's definitely the chunks of raisin. So if you're a raisin fan, you might like this. I will say though, I think I did something wrong. The sauce came out very, very watery, and I think it should have thickened up more. So now it is on to the pie. Now, I am very much aware of the fact that I overbrowned the meringue. As I said, I've never made a meringue before. I don't know if I've even seen a pie with meringue on top of it before. So that was kind of an adventure. We should do the Paul thing from the Great British Bake Off. I'd say that's a wee bit underfilled. That is so good. So I'm not a huge fan of how the meringue turned out, but that lemon filling is amazing. Like, I want to eat that on ice cream all the time. It's got a bit of a flowery aftertaste, but it's pretty yummy. So the last thing to try is the boiled coffee. And I had a little bit of a boiled coffee disaster where the pan overturned and half of it spilled out all down the front of the oven and all over the burner and all over the floor, which I still have to clean up, so that's what I'm going to do after I finish eating. But I did try and finish the process, and we'll see how it turned out. As I said earlier, I'm not a fan of black coffee under the best of circumstances, so I don't think boiling it on a stove and adding raw egg to it is going to make a strong difference, but we'll see. That tastes disgusting. If there was a coffee flavor of cough syrup, this is what it would taste like, except cough syrup is sweeter. That's just, oh, I'm not going to drink any more of that. That's terrible. Would not recommend that. This, however, this was good. So I think I successfully made all of these dishes. They definitely could have been made better by someone who's more experienced or someone who's had more practice for these specific dishes. But I think I did okay, and I saw it through, and I finished everything, and I tried to plate and arrange them nicely. though it was kind of a lost cause with the potatoes. I hope this video was somewhat entertaining. I think it ended up being a little bit more disjointed and chaotic than I had expected it to be. I had so many plans for how well this was going to go down, and they just didn't end up happening. But I did manage to finish everything. I did manage to film almost everything. So I really hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope you enjoyed seeing me take on some 20th century recipes as a change from 20th century patterns. So thank you all so much for watching. Make sure to give this video a like if you enjoyed it, as well as a comment. You can also support my channel on Patreon if you're feeling generous. There will be a link to that down below. I think that covers everything. Thank you again for watching. I really appreciate it, and I will talk to all of you very soon. Also, can we just talk about how this is the first video where I have been in costume for the entirety of it, and it is the only video on my channel that has absolutely nothing to do with sewing or costumes. That's just how it works out sometimes, isn't it?